Hello, lovely humans. Welcome back to I Love a Hoarder, the podcast for those of us in the messy trenches of love, life, and the labyrinth of stuff. I'm Chutney Whye, and as you know, I live with Ding Ding. We've been together for more than 2 decades, and in that time, she's developed into a card-carrying hoarder. So this is all very personal for me. Today's episode is a little different. Usually, I walk you through whatever drama the clutter gods have bestowed upon our humble home this week. But today I want to talk about books. Yeah, books. The literature, the research, the memoirs, the helpful, the weird, and the sometimes delightfully frustrating ones that try to make sense of hoarding. Hoarding! I've spent the last few weeks reading them, or skimming. Sometimes I do that too. But I did my best, and now I'd like to give you my totally unofficial, highly biased, and tender-hearted review of the hoarding canon. So grab your sugarless beverage of choice and let's dive in, shall we? All right, so here, let's start with the classic, the big one. It's called Stuff, Compulsive Hoarding and the Meaning of Things by Randy O. Frost and Gail Steckity. This book is kind of the godmother of hoarding lit. It came out in 2010 and really kicked off public awareness of hoarding as something distinct from general clutter or laziness. Frost and Steckity are psychologists, and they were some of the first to study hoarding, not just as a quirk, but as a mental health issue. They frame hoarding as an issue with decision-making, emotional attachment to objects, and this one hit me hard, a kind of identity construction through things. Ding Ding read over my shoulder once and said, "Oh, it's just like the junk is my autobiography, just in broken fans and novelty mugs." Yes, exactly. And that quote might be better than anything I read in the actual book. Stuff is clear, compassionate, and not judgy. It tells stories of real people, some of whom I recognized instantly in my own life. It also introduced me to the term sentimental hoarder, which is basically someone who can't throw out a used tissue because it reminds them of a hug they got in 1998. Ding ding! That's you, babe. Would I recommend it? Absolutely, especially if you're trying to understand the why behind the behavior. This book doesn't offer tons of solutions, but it helps you realize that you're not crazy. They're not crazy. It's just that the brain is doing something that needs gentle rerouting. Now, for something a little more step-by-step. Buried in Treasures, Help for Compulsive Acquiring, Saving, and Hoarding. Also by Frost and Steckity, with Tolan this time. This one's more like a workbook. It's got exercises, checklists, worksheets, the whole nine. I read this one with a highlighter in one hand and a cup of very strong ginseng elixir in the other. What I love about Buried in Treasures is that it breaks down things into manageable chunks. It helps people identify distorted thinking. You know, the old, "but I might need this." Did you hear that, Ding Ding? And replace it with more helpful patterns. Ding Ding got through the first 3 pages before declaring it suspiciously sensible and going back to sorting beads by emotional category. No, really, she has a jar labeled Nostalgic Chaos. But anyway, even if your hoarder partner isn't quite ready to do the exercises, you, dear listener, might benefit from understanding how those cognitive patterns work. You'll also pick up tips for talking about the stuff without sending your loved one into a shame spiral, which, trust me, is a skill worth building. Okay, pivot time. Let's talk memoirs. There are a few excellent personal accounts out there, but one that really grabbed me was Coming Clean by Kimberly Ray Miller. Now, this one's from the child of a hoarder perspective. Kimberly writes beautifully and heartbreakingly about growing up surrounded by piles and feeling like she had to carry the shame of it all. Her dad was the main hoarder, newspapers mostly, and her mom was a kind of silent sufferer. The book is full of guilt, love, resentment, resilience. And did I mention guilt? If you've ever felt like you're trying to love someone through something that you don't understand, this book will resonate hard. I actually had to take a break halfway through because it got a little too real. But by the end, I felt lighter. It reminded me that the mess doesn't define the relationship, and that healing doesn't always look like a clean floor, although it's nice when it does. Now, there's also Dirty Secret by Jessie Scholl, another daughter of a hoarder memoir that's raw and honest and sometimes funny in that grim survivalist way. If Coming Clean is a hug, Dirty Secret is more like a stiff drink, but both are excellent. Let's get nerdy for a moment. The Hoarding Handbook, a guide for human service professionals. And there should be a guide for saying the names of the authors, but here goes. Christiana Bratwatis, Sheila M. Warnock, and Christiana Sorrentino Schmalisch. Now, I know the title sounds like it was printed on beige paper and stored in a government cubicle, but hear me out. This book is actually great, especially if you're dealing with hoarding in a more professional capacity, like social work, organizing, elder care, or housing services. It explains the layers of complexity: mental health, safety, housing codes, family dynamics, and all in a way that feels manageable. It also talks a lot about harm reduction, which I think is a huge concept for us as civilian caregivers. Like maybe you can't get rid of the 400 yogurt containers this week, but maybe you can make a clear path to the bathroom? That's progress. That's dignity. This book reminded me that perfection is not the goal. Safety and stability are. Honorable Mentions. Digging Out by Michael Tompkins and Tamara Hartle. This one's geared toward families and partners of people who hoard. It's full of scripts and strategies, some of which are actually usable without triggering World War III in the living room. Or is it World War IV? I lose track. Another honorable mention, Hoarding, What Everyone Needs to Know by Gail Steckity, again, and Randy Frost, again. Think of this one as the FAQ page of Hoarding Lit. Quick, clear, and factual, good for giving to family members who don't get it, but mean well. And the last honorable mention, Clutter, An Untidy History by Jennifer Howard. Not a self-help book, but a fascinating cultural take. Why do we have so much stuff? What does it say about us as a society? Howard weaves personal narrative with history, and it's smart without being stuffy. Plus, it made me laugh and sometimes gasp at how much clutter is baked into capitalism. So what does all this mean, Chutney? I think reading all these books made me realize something. There is no magic bullet, no one-size-fits-all method, no checklist that turns your beloved hoarder into Marie Kondo with a label maker. But what the literature does offer is insight. It reminds us that hoarding is not a moral failure. It's a coping mechanism, a neurological hiccup, a way of processing fear, loss, and identity. And most of all, it's human. Ding Ding still sleeps with 3 broken umbrellas under her side of the bed for their dream potential. I don't fully get it, but I don't need to. What I need is to stay connected, to understand the why, and keep nudging toward health without shoving. Before I sign off, here's my personal Chutney takeaway. If you're living with someone who hoards, read one of these books. Just one. Not so you can fix them, but so you can see them more clearly. And maybe see yourself more clearly, too. You're not alone. You're not bad at this. You're just navigating a relationship that includes both love and layers of stuff. Welcome to the club. And if nothing else, remember, the journey doesn't have to be tidy to be beautiful. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I just heard Ding Ding muttering sweet nothings to a stack of expired printer ink. Stay safe out there, lovers of the layered. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and if you see any stars anywhere, give us 5. I'm Chutney Whye, and this is I Love a Hoarder. Say hi, Ding Ding. Say hi, Ding Ding. Close enough. Close enough.